Welcome everyone back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Sadly, she passed away on 1/1/2020, but we started Together for Sharon.com in her memory and to advocate for a cure for those still battling Parkinson's today and their families, because no one is ever alone in this fight for a cure. Today's guest is someone truly inspiring and also doing things in the field that I can't even imagine. I've done a lot of school in my life, but this was the area that definitely the sciences I lost me. So that's why I'm also grateful for individuals like the professor here who can share some insight in the actual world of research and things that are going on that I think need to be discussed more, but just aren't. So I wanted to really thank you, Doctor, for joining us today, and what an honor to have you on the show.
It's my pleasure, and my condolences with regards to your mom. That must be a very difficult thing, but I'm happy to be here and discuss the science of Parkinson's disease.
I appreciate it. And everyone listening too, we appreciate you for joining us. So maybe, Doctor, you can start us off with a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have a PhD in neuropsychology from City University of New York. From there, I went to University of Rochester School of Medicine, Department of Neurobiology and Anatomy. That's where I started to do brain cell transplantation. It was the leading place in the United States at that time, or one of the leading places in the United States at that time. Then after my postdoctoral work, I went to initially University of Illinois for 2 years, where I was an assistant professor, and then miraculously, the Rush University Medical Center across the street came and recruited me to the Department of Neurology there, where I spent 31 years doing mostly Parkinson's research, but also Alzheimer's research and multiple system atrophy and some other areas. Um, didn't expect what happened next. So out of the blue, after 31 years at Rush, a headhunter called me and said I've been nominated for a job here at Arizona State University, where I've been for the last 4 years. I'm the founding director of the Biodesign Neurologic Disease Research Center here, and just couldn't be happier. And I spend my work days caring about people with Parkinson's disease. I just gave a lecture to a patient group yesterday in Phoenix, Arizona, and it is my passion and it's what I care about most.
Thank you. And I also share that passion. Also, it's nice to meet colleagues from ASU. And I'm from Brooklyn, New York, so we have something in common there too. Something that touched you in your own life that led you to the world of Parkinson's, because obviously it's not something that everyone's aware of, which is what we're doing today, is trying to get everyone aware.
There's nothing in my family with Parkinson's disease. I had a father who died prematurely from Crohn's disease, and it's interesting that now we know that Crohn's disease is a people who get Crohn's disease tend to get Parkinson's disease more often. I always wonder now whether my father would have ultimately gotten Parkinson's disease. But what happened was I was in a conference, the Society for Neuroscience conference, with about 30,000 other people. And I was walking around and I just by chance walked into this room where lectures were being given on brain cell transplantation. I thought, wow, that's an amazing, I didn't know anything about it. And so I was there was a speaker but named Don Gash who was giving a talk transplanting vasopressin cells. These are cells that regulate how much you drink and how much you urinate. And he put them into a mutant rat that didn't make vasopressin. And these rats just peed and drank all day long. And then he was able to correct that by transplanting in these vasopressin cells. And I thought that was amazing. So I went up to him and I said, I'm graduating. I'd study vasopressin and pain perception. Maybe I could be a postdoc in your lab. And he ended up offering me the job. And then after I defended my thesis in December of '83, I went up to Rochester. I walk in, and I go, Don, I'm here. Let's go do vasopressin transplants. He goes, no, we're now a Parkinson's lab, and you're the monkey guy. And so there were two things here. I changed into it being someone who's now going to be studying Parkinson's disease. And also he gave me an opportunity to do things uniquely because there are very few people out there, still are very few people who do their work in large part in non-human primates. So we think that's essential to finding a cure. So that's how I got onto Parkinson's disease. And here we are.
Thanks. I really enjoyed that story. It's fascinating what brings us all together. And I think together our voices are so much stronger.
Mhm.
Specialty areas is stem cells and again, other therapies. Can you tell us, even for myself, even it's just amazing how little I know in so many sciences, but can you talk a little bit about, what a stem cell is? Imagine you're talking to me who kind of knew this, even though unfortunately I'm not, but just so the listeners can understand, your research and how critical stem cell, because I think a lot of people, even my mother, heard about it. We never got that opportunity. Maybe today many other individuals watching this, or again, share this, please, and support the doctor and all his incredible research and work. But maybe just kind of a crash course, if you can.
Sure, sure. It's quite. So let me just step back a moment before I tell you about what stem cells are. I want to emphasize that the original cells we used to try and cure people with Parkinson's disease were embryonic cells. They were fetal cells taken from aborted fetuses that were donated for research. Um, and there were problems with that. And first of all, it was difficult to dissect out the region that we need to dissect out to get dopamine cells. There was a lot of variability between the quality of the material. And so we always needed to get a cell that could be more uniform and also grown in incredibly large numbers, because you always want more rather than less. And so now we have stem cells. And the way what stem cells are is that they're the originator of all the different cells in the body. So initially they were using human embryonic stem cells where they would dissect out an embryo and then treat those cells and make them grow in a culture dish. Now we do it very simply. You can take any cell, virtually any cell in the body. So you could take fat cells, you could take muscle cells, you could take skin cells. In my group, and also for total transparency, I want you to know that I'm a founding scientist of a company called Kenai Therapeutics, in addition to my academic life. And in those studies, we take blood. So you take blood, put it in a culture dish, and you treat them with these, what we call factors. They're called the Yamanaka factors because Dr. Yamanaka won the Nobel Prize for discovering this process. And so you treat them with those factors, and the blood cells revert back to embryonic stem cells. So we get the starting material that we want, and we can grow them in enormous numbers. And then what we do is we treat them we bring them forward to maturity with other factors and make them have the capacity to make and secrete dopamine. And as we know, dopamine is what is lost and causes the motor problems in Parkinson's disease, the slowness of movement, the rigidity, the tremors. That's due to the loss of dopamine. And so the premise is if you lose cells that make dopamine and that causes these symptoms, why don't you just put back these cells and see whether you can regain function? The most powerful drug for Parkinson's disease is levodopa. And levodopa is the precursor for dopamine. So we know if we can get more dopamine in the brain, that we can have profound effects, symptomatic effects on patients with Parkinson's disease. Now, the problem is after a while, levodopa has side effects and the therapeutic window shrinks and shrinks. So something else needs to be done. And that's why we use, and other groups are using stem cells to try and replace the dopamine cells that are lost in the disease.
That's a really important information. And I feel should be shared. And I hope everyone again listening will also share that around the world. In your experience, that you've been doing this for some time, do you see progress, in terms of research and advancements in technology for Parkinson's patients?
I do. There are a couple of things that have happened very recently, and that is there's been a discovery called the synuclein seeding assay. Now, we know that one of the pathologies that occurs in Parkinson's disease is that um, a protein that's normally found in the brain called alpha-synuclein changes its shape and it folds on itself. And that makes that protein toxic in the brain. And that's what causes a lot of the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. Now, the problem with our clinical trials for many years has been by the time you're ready to treat somebody with something as innovative as stem cells, they've already had it for so many years. The disease, you don't really see symptoms for decades once the disease starts. It takes decades for symptoms to start to occur. And so you already have a brain that is very degenerative by the time you first diagnose a patient with Parkinson's disease. But we now have this assay. It's called the synuclein seeding assay, in which you take a spinal tap and you then put that spinal tap in a test tube with alpha-synuclein. And if the amount of alpha-synuclein grows over time, that person's going to develop Parkinson's disease. So now we can diagnose Parkinson's disease prior to diagnoses. And we can also perform clinical trials at much earlier stages than we have been able to before. I can tell you that I also was part of a gene therapy company that we tried to augment this dopamine, and the company failed because the patients that we enrolled in our clinical trials were already so far gone in terms of the dopamine system that there was nothing there really to recapture. And so having this nuclear seeding assay is really a revolutionary aspect of clinical trials for Parkinson's disease. And we're going to reap the benefits of this very soon.
It's always fascinating. I have a PhD also, mine's in criminal justice and law enforcement, but whether you fail or not is not a bad thing at all times in research, and a lot of people don't understand that. So sometimes it's good to fail the research because now you tested something and you learn maybe that can be a little bit of a advancement also. So I think it's really interesting and important. How readily available is stem cells? That's a big thing. I think when my mother 6-7 years ago was, looking into everything because we tried everything, but we heard about stem cells. We didn't really pursue it because I don't think in at least South Florida, it's much around for it. Is that something that might change in the future?
Yeah, there are a lot of people working in stem cells, and there are actually now, I think, 5 or 6 clinical trials that are ongoing with dopaminergic stem cells for patients with Parkinson's disease. And so there are lots of other groups that have expertise in doing this. Now, bringing something to market really requires a partnership with industry, and that's why I co-founded Kenai Therapeutics. It's very expensive to run a clinical trial. You got to do a lot of work and get FDA approval before you can do this, but it is doable. It's not ready for the masses yet, but once these clinical trials finish and hopefully they'll be deemed both safe and effective, then we'll be fine. We'll be able to do it on a much larger scale.
And what are some other therapies in addition to stem cells that you work a lot with or are currently addressing?
Well, there are a few things. One is and this is something that we're just getting started on. We're very interested in. There's only one thing we know that slows the progression of Parkinson's disease, and that's exercise. And I'm not a physician, so I don't give medical advice. But I cheat on that just a little bit because I often will tell patients, if your doctor says that you are physically capable of exercise, both mentally exercise, like crossword puzzles, reading, and things like that, because Parkinson's also has a cognitive component, and that'll slow that. but also the motor aspects of Parkinson's disease. And so why does that happen? It happens because when you exercise, your muscle secretes a compound called irisin. It's a naturally occurring compound in your body. And the muscle secretes into your bloodstream and it gets across the blood-brain barrier, gets into the brain, and it protects the brain in experimental animals from all these misfolded proteins that are um, problematic in the brains of a patient with Parkinson's disease. So we're running series of studies right now in models of both Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and Down syndrome to see whether irisin can be of help in this regard. The way we would deliver it is by putting irisin on what we call a gene therapy vector. So it's a virus, but it's not a bad virus. We got all the bad stuff in the virus. You don't get sick from these viruses. In fact, hundreds, if not thousands, of patients have received them in the past. But you inject it intravenously, and the virus has a cargo that is irisin, and it will secrete forever in the brains of patients with neurodegenerative diseases. So that's an area that we're very excited about. And also we're doing work with intrabodies, which is an intracellular antibody, in an attempt to try and clear these misfolded proteins that occur in the brains of patients with Parkinson's disease. We've had great success in experimental animals, and we're now looking for ways of bringing that to clinical trials as well.
I wanted to take a moment and share a few areas and commend and thank you for all the work you do, and along with ASU and also the Michael J. Fox Foundation. I was wondering if you could touch on just for a moment how you discover Michael J. Fox Foundation and became affiliated with a lot of the research through what they do.
Well, when they opened their doors, when the only employees were Michael J. Fox himself and Debbie Brooks, the co-founder of the Fox Foundation, they brought in a scientist to be their scientific leader named Bill Langston. And Bill is a Parkinson's researcher and one of the giants in the field. And he was tasked to form an advisory committee. And he called me, as well as a number of other people, to be part of their advisory committee. And so that's how I got started with Michael J. Fox. I've been able to successfully compete for grants. They don't just give me grants. I compete for grants with everybody. And I've been very successful, and it's been very exciting, except for my personal research. There's nothing I've enjoyed more in my professional career than working with the Fox Foundation. I've been an SAB member from the very beginning. I've been a two-time executive SAB member, and I just enjoy the science that's being done there and the thought processes that it is working with the foundation. And as I also like, as a brief aside, if you think Michael J. Fox is a charming person when you see him on television, he's even more charming, more funny, more brilliant in person. And it's been an honor to be a member of his foundation.
Yeah, that support is so important, and also having ASU as a major supporter. I found this research too on a lot of the things you're doing, but 5.2 million is a lot. I think Mr. Fox has raised over $2.5 billion. That's not million, billion.
That's right.
It's incredible what everyone does as a family and a team. And I was wondering, you mentioned a little bit about ASU, but you tell us a little bit more on the department, and then some of the other advances that you've been successful at. I know you already spoke about some, but I just wanted to thank ASU also for supporting you on this important journey that you're on to advance.
Well, as I mentioned, I was at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago for 31 years.
Mhm.
And I get this phone call that says I've been recommended for this job. And I said to the headhunter, I went, I don't want to be a chairman anyway. I apologize. I don't want to be a chairman anywhere. They say this is not that. Then they go, well, I, I said, do you, is it to take over an existing center? Because I didn't want that. So I didn't want to have a center and I have to then go and change the culture. They said, no, it's to be a founding director of a neurodegenerative disease center. And I thought, well, that was really the only thing I would get me to move from Chicago to Arizona. And so I came out here, I interviewed, I found out not only is ASU a fantastic place, but Phoenix is a fantastic, and the Arizona in general is fantastic for science. There's Banner Health, there's Barrow Neurologic Institute, there's the Mayo Clinic, and everyone wants to work with me, and it's very collaborative. And so it is one of the most, it's my dream job, and quite frankly, and there's not a second that's gone by that my wife and I have regretted coming out to Arizona. So I run the center here. We do things in mostly my lab does mostly Parkinson's, but we do also a lot of work in Alzheimer's disease. We do a lot of work in multiple system atrophy. In addition to looking for therapies, I do a lot of work looking at why the brain degenerates in Parkinson's disease. That'll give us more clues on uh, how to cure it and how to have better treatments. And I also work a lot in developing animal models for Parkinson's disease and other diseases. And we do a lot of that work in non-human primates. Again, that makes us a little bit special uh, from other places.
Thank you. Yeah, as we kind of wrap up, I always say this show might be ended today, but conversation continues until there's a cure at everybody's doorsteps around the world. As we kind of wrap up today, I just had a few more questions. I have so many we
Sure.
can't get to, but is there something in your kind of, I always say gut, like sometimes you have a thought, but you never really found an answer. I'm talking more about research. It's something you always wondered or want an answer to, but as frustrating as it is, you just haven't had that answer, and you might never. There's something that kind of not haunts you, but pushes you to drives you to keep thinking about maybe a question that hasn't been answered.
Well, the thing that drives me are the patients. You know, I love giving talks to patient groups. And I'll tell you, when I first started doing that, and the patients are, first of all, so intelligent, so knowledgeable, and they're, they really teach me a lot as to what's going on in the disease. What are they feeling? What is their priority? So I can adjust my priorities to meet their priorities. And I'll give you one great example. When the first time that I was doing this at Rush University, there was a big group of Parkinson's patients, and I'm talking about transplantation of cells for Parkinson's. I'm talking about gene therapy, talking about how we're trying to improve their movement and things like that. And then they were kind of, just sitting there, nodding their head, not getting a real much reaction to it. And then I said, and we think that Parkinson's disease may start in the gut, and that's may be why you have constipation and constipate. And then they all sit up and they go, "Can you do something about constipation? Can you do so?" And that was a real eye opener for me. So I knew that constipation was a symptom of Parkinson's disease, but I didn't realize it was such a critical day-to-day symptom that patients suffer from. And so that really turned me on is that I got to pay more attention to what the patients are thinking, what the patients are needing, and then design my research program about around that. So that's sort of not an exact answer to your question, but that's something that really drives me and drives my program.
Well, that was an excellent answer, and unfortunately brings back my memories of my mother. And one of the worst symptoms was constipation. Like literally,
Yeah.
we had to hire staff for $12,000 a month towards the last year of her life to be around the clock because it was, I don't like saying torture, but that almost combated, you're trying to deal with the symptoms of Parkinson, but then you have these other outcomes due to the medications and who knows, but definitely something that also needs to be addressed. And as we speak, I think of so many more, ideas and terms. But to conclude today, I was wondering if you can leave the Parkinson's community with some words of encouragement, what would they be?
There will be this. We are working our ass off to try and help you. And this is not just me, this is the whole Parkinson's scientific and clinical community. It's a group that is very passionate about trying to help you, and we will not quit until we find a cure or find a treatment that dramatically improves your quality of life. And we'll also, and one of the other things I do in my center is not only um, put our mind to trying to cure this disease, but we also look to things about the caregivers. We understand one of the things that attracted me to my position was there was a $25 million donation to my center that I used to help run the center. And the woman who donated it was her husband had Lewy body dementia, which is sort of a form of Parkinson's disease. And so she's mandated that some of that money go to help reduce the burden of caregivers of patients with Parkinson's disease. Dr. Ackman, I know you were a caretaker for your mom, and so that would resonate with you quite strongly, I would think. And so um, I know we're never fast enough. I get that. I understand that. We all understand it. But we are going as fast as we can, as safely as we can, to develop new and effective treatments. And on behalf of the Parkinson's community, I pledge to you that we are doing our very best to find cures and treatments as fast as possible.
I wanted to really and deeply thank you, because I don't think that's enough thanks, just that statement for your time and really bringing us inside the world of research. Of course, I can't do that. I can advocate, I can talk about my background, but can't take everyone like we did. I feel like together, really like a journey into the world of what's the real individuals who are changing and shaping the world, and hopefully bring us very quickly and closer to the cure. So thank you, Professor. Means the world. I consider us family now. So you're stuck with me till we do have a cure as well. As well.
You're more than welcome to contact me anytime you want, George.
I appreciate it.
I'm happy to serve the community.
Thanks. Well, I want to thank you again. Thank everyone listening. Please support ASU, the professor, and Michael J. Fox Foundation. I have a message we end all shows with. This is to you, Professor, and to everyone listening. We love you. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with the professor, will advocate for you, and together I feel our voices are so much stronger. I always kind of conclude the show with just saying I'm just getting started, because even though I've been doing it, unfortunately, for 5 years, there are days with my own health, with society, with even just now, unfortunately, I'm a police officer and a lawyer. My PhD is in criminal justice. We just saw a sad school shooting on the television before
Oh boy.
that, which is tragic. So we send our love and support to all those too, battling that now. But despite all the tough things in society, in the world, and in our own lives, individuals like you, Professor, do inspire me to never give up. So I just wanted to thank you so much again, and thank our listeners. The show wouldn't be possible and wouldn't continue if it wasn't for all of you. Please share the show. Again, I say it a lot, broken record, I don't want anything in return. Literally, I know in 2025, that's shocking, but there are those of us who don't want anything. We just want everyone to be aware. I don't want anyone to feel alone like I did. And I couldn't believe, I thought about the other month, but my mother never met somebody else who had Parkinson's for 15 years. And I think these shows and our conversation today really does change that. So thank you again. Thank you, Professor.
You're,
This has
you're
been,
very welcome.
appreciate it. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon and George. Please stay tuned. Please support again the professor. We have a lot more work to be done, and you can be sure both of us will be fighting right by your side. Thanks, everyone. We send our love.
Indeed.
See you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.